You have spent years learning to spot the manipulators in your life, the energy vampires, the people who smile. While they take from you, you can read their patterns. Now you can name their tactics: gaslighting, love bombing, guilt tripping. And you thought that knowledge would protect you. But here you are again, drained again, used again, wondering how someone got past your defenses for the 100th time. And here is the uncomfortable truth: knowing the enemy outside means nothing if you have not dealt with the enemy inside. As long as a part of yourself remains hidden even from you, that hidden part becomes the exact door manipulators walk through, without you ever knowing it was open. The only way to stop being a target is to stop being naive about your own depths, and that requires something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You must become acquainted with your own darkness. By the end of this video, you are going to understand why the most psychologically safe people are not the kindest, most agreeable people in the room. They are the ones who have made peace with parts of themselves that most people are terrified to even look at. And if you want to understand exactly how to do this for yourself, make sure you subscribe right now, because this is going to challenge almost everything you think you know about being a good person. Let's start with a concept from the psychologist Carl Jung, called the shadow. The shadow is not evil despite what the name might suggest. The shadow is simply everything about yourself that you have rejected, hidden, or refused to acknowledge. It is your anger that you were taught was unacceptable, your selfishness that you were told was shameful, your desires, your jealousy, your need for power, your capacity for cruelty. All of it pushed down into the basement of your psyche from a young age, because somewhere along the way, someone taught you that these parts of you were bad and should never be shown. The problem is that the shadow does not disappear just because you stop looking at it. It does not get weaker, it gets stronger in the dark. And more importantly, it starts controlling you from behind the scenes without your permission. This is where we need to talk about two very different types of people. And the difference between them is not about kindness or intelligence, it is about something much deeper. The first type is what we will call the naive empath. The naive empath is often a deeply caring person, someone who feels other people's emotions strongly, someone who has been told their entire life that they are too sensitive, too nice, too giving. But underneath that kindness, there is something. The naive empath has never been allowed to access their own capacity for anger, their own selfishness, their own darker impulses. These were labeled as bad so early in life that the naive empath built an entire identity around being the opposite, always agreeable, always understanding, always putting others first. But here is the problem: because the naive empath has rejected their own shadow, they cannot recognize it in others either. When a manipulator displays subtle selfishness or hidden aggression, the naive empath's mind does not raise an alarm, because consciously acknowledging that darkness exists would mean acknowledging it exists in themselves too. And that is too threatening. So instead, the naive empath makes excuses, explains away red flags, and absorbs behavior that should have triggered an exit a long time ago. They are not weak. They are simply blind to a frequency they were never allowed to tune into. The second type is what we will call the integrated individual. And this is not a person who has become cold or cynical or manipulative themselves. This is someone who has done something much rarer. They have gone into their own basement, turned on the lights, and looked directly at every part of themselves. They were taught to be ashamed of their anger, their pride, their selfish desires, their capacity to hurt someone if pushed in. Instead of rejecting these parts, they acknowledge them as real. This does not mean they act on every dark impulse. It means they know these impulses exist within them. And because they know this, they can recognize the exact same impulses the moment they appear in someone else. When a manipulator tries a subtle tactic, the integrated individual's mind immediately recognizes it, not through suspicion, but through familiarity. It is like recognizing a language you once spoke fluently. Here is the diagnostic difference that defines everything else. The naive empath is unconsciously hiding from a part of themselves, and that hidden part becomes the blind spot that manipulators exploit. The integrated individual has nothing hidden from themselves, so there is no blind spot left to exploit. This is what we mean by becoming dangerous, not dangerous in the sense of being cruel or harmful to others, but dangerous in the sense that you can no longer be easily used, because The very mechanism manipulation depends on your own self-deception, simply does not exist in you anymore. This process of facing and integrating the shadow is what Jung called individuation, and individuation is not about becoming a perfect person. It is about becoming a whole person. Most people live as a fraction of themselves, presenting only the parts that were approved of while disowning everything else. But a fraction of a person is unstable. A fraction can be pushed, pulled, and manipulated, because there are entire rooms inside them that they themselves refuse to enter. Individuation means walking through every room in your own house, turning on the lights in each one, and saying, yes, this is also me. So how do you actually start this process? Because this can sound abstract until you understand how to apply it. The first step is noticing your triggers. Think about the type of person who makes your blood boil the most. Maybe it is someone arrogant, maybe it is someone who lies easily, maybe it is someone who is cold and dismissive. Whatever triggers the strongest reaction in you often points directly to a part of your own shadow. The intensity of your reaction is rarely just about them. It is about a quality you have deeply suppressed in yourself, and your nervous system is reacting to the resemblance even if your conscious mind refuses to see it. The second step is what we can call the ownership practice. The next time you notice a strong negative reaction to someone's behavior privately, and honestly ask yourself, where have I done something similar, even in a smaller or different way? This is not about self-blame, it is about recognition. You might realize that you have also been selfish in your own way. You have also manipulated a situation to get what you wanted. You have also been cold to someone when it was convenient. Acknowledging this does not make you a bad person, it makes you an honest one. And honesty with yourself is the foundation of the inner fortification we are building. The third step is reclaiming your anger. Most people who struggle with being used have a complicated relationship with anger. They were taught that anger is dangerous or unacceptable, so they suppress it. But anger is not your enemy. Anger is information. Anger tells you when a boundary has been crossed, when something is unfair, when you are being taken advantage of. When you suppress your anger, you are not becoming more peaceful. You are simply removing your own alarm system. Start by simply allowing yourself to notice when you feel angry without immediately judging that feeling or pushing it away. Just notice it is there. The fourth step is integrating your selfishness. This might sound counterintuitive, but hear me out. Everyone has self-interest. It is not evil, it is human. The naive empath often believes that having needs of their own makes them selfish, so they suppress their own needs entirely. But here is what happens when you do this. You become resentful without realizing it, and that resentment leaks out in passive ways, or it gets exploited by people who realize you will never say no. Integrating your selfishness simply means acknowledging, I have needs too, my needs matter too. This is not the same as becoming self-centered, it is becoming balanced. The fifth step is sitting with discomfort without fixing it. When you start to glimpse a part of yourself you have rejected for years, there will be discomfort, there might even be shame. The instinct is to immediately push it back down, or to overcorrect by becoming harsh and defensive. Instead, the practice is to simply sit with it, to let that part of you exist in your awareness without needing to do anything about it immediately. This is where the actual integration happens, not through dramatic action, but through quiet acknowledgement. Here is what changes once you begin this work. The world does not become less manipulative. People do not suddenly become more honest. What changes is you. Your internal radar becomes sharper, not because you are more suspicious, but because you are more whole. The parts of you that used to be exploited, because they were hidden even from yourself, are now in the light, and light cannot be used against you the same way darkness can. The most psychologically safe people in any room are not the ones who appear the most harmless. They are the ones who have already met every version of themselves, including the versions they used to be afraid of. And because there is nothing left to hide, there is nothing left for anyone else to find and use. If this video helped you understand why integration matters more than just awareness, make sure you subscribe, because next time we are going deeper into how to set boundaries without guilt, and why most people fail at this even when they know exactly what they need to say.